Everybody, let's get right into it today. We got a whole bunch to go over. So in Russia yesterday, we see First Deputy Permanent Representative of the Russian Federation to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansky, says that he will be heading back to the UN to discuss the biolabs in Ukraine and the use of chemical weapons by the Ukraine armed forces. Now, this comes in response to a United Nations Security Council meeting held yesterday where Western leaders are meeting on the humanitarian crisis now present in Ukraine and are requesting something be done about Russia accepting armaments from other countries like drones from Iran. How's it going? France, Japan, and the UK and the US are accusing Iran of transferring unmanned aerial vehicles to Russia and argue that the transfers constitute a violation of UN Resolution 2231. The West and NATO can supply Ukraine with weapons like the tanks that we're sending over there, prolonging the war and the death, but Russia cannot accept any help from their allies. In response, Dmitry Polyansky says that, quote, "We mentioned all of the evidence being posted on the internet of the use of chemical weapons by Ukrainian forces, and we will continue to draw attention to this issue as more accurate information surfaces." So folks, understand what's going on here. Okay? The biolab stuff is real. Okay? The race-specific viruses are real. And the Ukraine forces are actively using chemical weapons. In a UN security meeting in October of last year, Russia tested Ukraine POWs along with Russian soldiers and found that many had been infected with various pathogens, including influenza and Newcastle disease. Now, this was reported by some, but the mainstream media never picked any of it up to show the people. But this occurred at the UN. At this October United Nations Security Council meeting, Russian Representative Vasily Nebenzia said that the United States had patented a drone capable of spreading mosquitoes infected with dangerous viruses. He said, quote, "According to the description, such a drone transports a container with a large number of mosquitoes, the carriers of infections, to a targeted area and releases them. While biting," hey, Holly, more fear porn. You almost lost your job because of, yeah. I don't know who voted for this, Holly. I know there's not 81 million people. I know that. It's too bad. While biting, mosquitoes infect people with pathogens of particularly dangerous diseases. The explanation directly emphasizes that an infected serviceman will be unable to perform the tasks assigned to them. To conclude, the disease can be a more valuable military tool than the most modern weapons and military equipment. That was what the Russian representative had to say in October. And he's 100% spot on. In fact, the neocons' New American Century that they wrote there in 99, 2000 or whatnot, cited biological weapons as the future problems in our world. It's playing out to a T. Okay. He went on to say that it is noted that such an infection among enemy servicemen would have a significant military effect. And he's absolutely right again. So let's see what ends up coming from this, guys. Moving over to the Blue Bird, Twitter execs Gedaya and Roth were in front of the House yesterday getting grilled on their collusion with the government. Roth lied right to Rep. Lauren Boebert's face when she asked him if he helped silence her. A standing member of the U.S. House of Representatives is claiming he did not, while internal records showed that it was indeed his decision at the end of the day because they had a policy in place for elected officials. and it had to be cleared by him or Gedaya. And they both, to the best of their knowledge, as they say, said no. And that's where they get out, right there. To the best of my knowledge. There's their out, right there. So, you should pull up, I don't know, Boebert's got a 5 or 6 minute clip you should check out of her grilling these folks. And MTG had a nice little clip. But the guy who wins most base congressman of the week is a guy named Clay Higgins. He pull up his quote, his video quote in the House yesterday. He while grilling Gedaya and Roth, he said, quote, "This is just the investigation part. Later comes the arrest part. Your attorneys are familiar with that." End quote. So, he's right, but we've been let down so many times before that I wouldn't advise anyone to get their hopes up. Maybe just pray. It's about all you can do at this point, right, Holly? And good for you, Holly. You put your money where your mouth was. Not a lot of people would do that. Got big props. So over to the World Health Organization, the WHO's Dr. Tedros, the communist from Ethiopia, says that we must prepare for a potential H5N1 human bird flu epidemic. And folks, this is a relative of the H1N1 virus that we saw in 2009, which I believe was a test run. Major outbreaks of the H1N1 strains in humans include the Spanish flu, the 1977 Russian flu pandemic, and, as stated, the 2009 swine flu pandemic. As I stated, and that came in Obama's first year. And knowing what we know now with all of the gain of function going on all over the world at our biolabs, and with an outbreak during the Obama years in 29 of this H1N1, in my opinion, that was used as a test run. And so, does anyone out there think that this is a man-made mutated virus from the H1N1 from 2009? I do. Corona might have been child's play. Soften you up. See, it wasn't a big deal, right? So now for sure the conservatives aren't going to go out and get scared this next time. But what if this next time's 10, 20, 30% more deadly? Be a good way to take out a bunch of people that vote against them, wouldn't it? So keep your eyes on that one, folks. Because all the right people have been telling us to be ready for another pandemic. And we know by now that we need to listen closely when these demons speak. Now, let's go over to Sy Hersh. I'm no fan of that guy, but he's been a respected investigative journalist for quite some time now and is sort of mainstream. And so that's why I don't trust him. But it looks like he's got some good work here that he did. His latest piece on Substack tells the tale of a U.S.-led deep-sea diving operation to plant and detonate explosives on the pipeline Nord Stream 2 in order to prevent Putin from having oil to sell to other countries in Europe. Now, the problem with this is that it caused people like the Germans to have to pay extremely higher prices for natural gas, especially now during the winter. Europeans will die and have died because of this, and it was all to not let Putin profit. If I've lived in Europe, I'd have a few things to say to this supposed American president. Now, according to Sy Hersh, or Seymour Hersh, the planning took place late in 2021 and into the first months of 2022, and was led by President Biden and his foreign policy team, which included National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Secretary of State Tony Blinken, and Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State for Policy. He says what became clear to participants, according to the source with direct knowledge of the process, is that Sullivan intended for the group to come up with a plan for the destruction of the of the two Nord Stream pipelines, and that he was delivering on the desires of the president, which is Biden at this time, obviously. The CIA argued that whatever was done, it would have to be covert. This is not kiddie stuff, the source said. If the attack were traceable to the United States, it's an act of war. Over the next few weeks, members of the CIA's working group began to craft a plan for a covert operation that would use deep-sea divers to trigger an explosion along the pipeline. In early 2022, the CIA working group reported back to Sullivan's interagency group, quote, "We have a way to blow up the pipelines." This is both of them here. Now they didn't end up doing both, but that's apparently what they were planning on. All they had to do now is just do it, but it still had to be a secret. The Russians have superlative surveillance and patrol of the Baltic Sea. And so, without making this too long, the U.S. used the regularly scheduled training exercise, codenamed Baltops 22, the premier Baltic Sea maritime exercise. This operation took place in the Baltics and provided perfect cover for this CIA covert op to take place. And that's exactly what occurred. The U.S. is now adamantly denying this, but the Hirsch report is so detailed and and much can be verified simply from open source channels like the MSM reporting about things. However, the intricate details and the planning and implementation of the operation come from an intelligence source who was part of the meeting. So I guess it all comes down to his source as to whether or not this is true, but the details in it are so precise that it leads me to believe that this is definitely a truthful report. Plus, Hirsch has a pretty good reputation, like a great reputation anyway. So that's where we're at on that. This was going to be a little bit shorter here, but since we don't have any kind of action today, I don't think we got any more than one or two people. We'll probably wrap this up, but I do want to draw your attention back to February 9th, 2022, right before the invasion occurred in Ukraine, when Biden said, "I promise you, we will end Nord Stream 2. Well, they denied it after it happened, and sure enough, we see that it did happen. And if I'm German or anywhere in Europe, I am mad about it, because people died over this and will die over this. And the financial hardships that this is going to cost for energy is off the charts. And so hopefully something will come of it. A couple other things I can throw out there while I got a few more minutes. I don't know what's going on with James O'Keefe. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he's the board of directors of Project Veritas has ousted him. And I guess that's Veritas's first problem. They should never went public with it. I didn't know they had a board of directors, because if you guys follow my work, especially if you guys have listened to the basis for our confusion that I put out, 15 chapters, you'll see that I go through very detailed about how the controllers take over corporations through their board of directors. Okay, I went into detail. We've broken down the five main media companies. We found that they were owned by BlackRock and Vanguard through their board, and then through the board of directors. Once you get snakes in there, then now policy for the company is made through that board. And so I'm actually stunned that Project Veritas did this, in public like that. I thought they would have kind of kept things a little bit private, because this is a way for the snakes to infiltrate in, and it looks like that's what they probably did. I see no reason for O'Keefe to be ousted. In fact, his last report was a bombshell, and so there's just no reason for it. Clearly, he's being outed because he's a truth teller. And of course, they put somebody new in there, then they can control it. They'll still pretend to go undercover and find corruption and stuff, but now it's consider it the ADL or the ACLU or hell, the FBI. They're only gonna do what they want. They're not gonna get the real crooks. So it'll be controlled and fake, and that's just the way that it is. So that's that. I'm going through right now to see if there's any more breaking news. It's unfortunate we didn't have more people here, but I'll keep doing this every day. We'll attempt to get this going. One other thing, you guys are probably sick of it by now, but the China spy airship was outfitted with antennas likely capable of collecting communications. We knew that, right? That's according to the Wall Street Journal. So we don't even know if we can believe it. What else did it have? That might be true. You know how the news does. They'll report truthfully, but then they'll omit things. It's the way that they report it. Yeah, maybe there was antennas likely capable of collecting communication. You guys see how this is done? Of course there's antennas to collect communications. They got to communicate somehow. Okay. But what else was on there? See how they do? They might omit what else was on there. It's all bull. The dollar, the Russian dollar or the US dollar, course looks like it might be being ousted from the reserve currency for the world, which is fine by me. The Russians have already voted against using dollars or any asset that's heavy in dollars, or the dollar itself, investing in currency. No more dollars for the Russian retirement funds. It's like their Social Security. They're equivalent to our Social Security or their pension funds. You know how we invest pension funds, and then the mafia steals it, the gangsters and stuff. Same sort of concept. So what he said a few months back is no more dollars. Well, yesterday, or it might have been this morning, Putin announces no more euros to go into this national retirement fund for the people who are on Social Security, basically. So they're only going to invest in the Chinese yuan or won, however you say it, the ruble, which is pretty strong right now, and gold. And I got a few ounces of gold, so let's see what happens here. Let's buy it up. That'll create some demand. So it looks like we're seeing over the last few years, we're seeing a slow decoupling from the US dollar being the world reserve. And that's fine, because we know the Fed is behind all this, and we know that as much as it might hurt, it's got to happen, folks. It's got to happen for us to have normalcy in our world. So we got to get rid of the petrodollar, and it looks like some of these big countries are heading that way. So don't be alarmed. It's a good thing. It could be a little bit painful at first, but I mean, it is what it is. The Church of England, I spoke on this yesterday about a gender-neutral God that they were gonna change the Our Father, because that's patriarchal, that's male gender. So I don't know what they're gonna call it, our they, our Father, our they, our I don't know what they plan on doing, but now they've come out now today and they voted to offer blessings to same-sex couples after supposedly an 8-hour debate over the course of 2 days, which is what I was reporting on yesterday. That was the gender God stuff, is what they had talked about at the point that I did the report. And now we see that they went into the same-sex couple stuff. And this is fine. It's not an issue, you know, for the most part, except like in the United States, when this occurred with the legalization of the marriages. It's fine, but I remember opponents of this back then saying, well, you just can't do it because you can't give these demons, not gay people being demons, you know what I'm talking about, the people behind this. And they would say, you can't give these demons an inch because they'll take a mile. And if you're in America with this example, you see what's occurred here now. You go from a same-sex marriage to adoption. Again, there's some loving couples. It's fine. The problem is that gay people are like, I think it's 4 or 5 times more likely to commit pedophilia. So you have a group of people that's just a small fraction of people to begin with, and they have this high percentage of being sexual deviants. And I mean, by definition, it's sort of sexual deviance. Anyway, again, don't take any of this the wrong way. I understand. Okay? But you see what happens. So you go from same-sex marriage now to adopting these children. How many of it? Look, you just seen a report of the 2 guys that were pimping the child out. I think they had 2 children they adopted. Again, and then now here we are even further today, go even further, and we see the whole LGBTQ, the whole movement looks to be groomers. It looks to be, and they're so intrusive into everyone else's life, and they're like, they make you, do struggle sessions basically on their way of life until you can, profess to it and get behind it. And it's like, whoa, man. And then, of course, now they're allowing children to have gender affirmation surgery before they even hit puberty. They're bringing in the drag queens into the schools and having kids come and so reading to them in the libraries with it. So it's a complete and utter joke. And so you can't... So we'll see what happens in the UK. There's the inch they're going to give. Now let's see them take a mile back. I just saw we had some numbers shooting up, but as I started to free flow, we've dropped down to about nothing. So I'm going to let you guys go. Maybe we'll have some better luck tomorrow. Thank you, guys.